happy that the sun is shining, because I really didn't think that was going to be the case 24 hours ago. And thank you for joining us in this celebration of the life of 292 Hills Road. Constructed in 1924 for Cyril Ridgeon, the founder, oh that's very kind of him, the founder of Ridgeon's Builders Merchants. It's one of a cluster of houses around here, built between the wars for what was then Cambridge's up-and-coming generation of entrepreneurs. And although the house's graceful design has been compromised by the recent destruction of the garden and the erection of these, shall we say, graceless garages, you can still see the craftsmanship that went into the house's design. It's these details which have underpinned the widely held belief that 292 was built to a design by Edwin Lutyens, one of the greatest architects of the 20th century. So York House is an architecturally distinguished building with a direct link to one of Cambridge Town's most significant business dynasties, and it forms part of a cluster of houses built for the civic leaders of the day. It's enriched the streetscape on this busy junction for 94 years. It was lived in very happily by successive families until 2015. It's structurally sound and it's sustainable. There is nothing wrong with this house, and it has many irreplaceable qualities. But none of this matters to the current owners. They paid 1.75 million for it in 2016, and now they want to demolish it. They've provided no details of what they intend to build in its place, and they believe that by demolishing first, which the council has few powers to oppose, they found a handy loophole which will make approval of a subsequent planning application easier to achieve. And the sad thing is, they're not the only ones playing this game. The demolition axe is now hanging over 291 Hills Road, just the other side of the junction, where the developers, whose substandard development plans were rejected by last month's planning committee, have now decided to go ahead and demolish the property anyway. It's not that they're in any doubt about how the public feel about their proposal. They and their advisors are just too damn arrogant to care. Now, we're not foolish enough to think that neighbourhoods can be preserved in aspect for perpetuity, or to argue that there can never be a case for development and change. But the kind of development we are seeing in the city right now can only be described as parasitical. It literally feeds off its host to the detriment of its host. For example, as was the case with 291 Hills Road, developers tried to wriggle out of their obligation to provide affordable housing. City council policy says they should be delivering 40% affordable housing on that site. They offered none. Absolutely none. Similarly, you have to wait for the next bit. Similarly, developers negotiate down their Section 106 payments, which are designed to mitigate the impact of their development. If the developer of 291 succeeds in their plan of building 15 flats with an average value of, say, £400,000, they will generate £6 million sales value on a plot they bought for 1.7 million. You can do the maths, but the Section 106 payment negotiated would provide less than £40,000 back to the city. Then there are the developers who build so densely on their plot that their construction vehicles spill out onto the pavement and block the cycle paths for months on end. Or the developers who strip out gardens and hedges and trees, which provide a shelter for wildlife and beauty and variety to be enjoyed by all, and replace them with bland, sterile, hard landscaping. And when they've finished this process of ducking their obligations and maximising their return, they market their properties with great emphasis on the attractiveness of the leafy surroundings in these established neighbourhoods. In fact, the more effort we put into making our communities attractive, the more profit the developer can rake in. And that, to me, is the very definition of parasitical development. The financial returns these developers can make are huge. There is no incentive for them to play fair or do the right thing. In fact, there is a whole raft of professional services companies in the city who aid them and abet them in being as self-serving as possible, and who then reap the rewards themselves of doing this. So given this combination of rampant developer greed and inadequate planning protection, what can we as residents do to protect our neighbourhoods? Firstly, we can organise ourselves. We can share what we've learned from the contentious cases across the city: the Tivoli, Romsey Labour Club, Montreal Square, CB1, 291 Hills Road, 292 Hills Road, so that the next community under threat doesn't have to start educating itself from scratch. And we can encourage our local media to publish content that will enhance the public understanding of these issues, rather than just reprinting developers' press releases. Secondly, we can demand to see some real leadership. It's clear that neither the current local plan nor that currently under examination offer anything like adequate protection in the face of the siege now being laid to the city. So let's hear from Lewis Herbert, leader of the City Council, and from Stephen Kelly, Director of Planning and Economic Development, a clear and a credible articulation of how Cambridge's growth is going to be managed without our existing neighbourhoods being devastated. We cannot wait for the next local plan process to get underway in 2019. They need to send a message now to the developers and to their cronies that in Cambridge, respecting the letter of planning policy while disregarding the spirit of its intent is not good enough. Finally, we can make this an explicit political issue. We're starting to see a few councillors willing to take a vocal stand. For example, Dave Bajan in Romsey and our own Colin McGurty. But to date, they've been few and far between. We need to get this higher up the agenda so that our councillors know it matters to us, know that we expect them to frame and act on policies which will protect the fabric of our community, and know that there will be electoral consequences if they fail to do so. And to return to the sad fate of 292. In their letter of objection to this demolition, Cambridge Past, Present and Future posed the following question: at what point does the council demonstrate to its residents that they do care about the quality of life, built and natural environment, and the historic structures that give the city the character for which it's renowned? If the legacy of 292's demolition is to force a real engagement with that question, then, and only then, will its loss not have been in vain.